5-minute mantra meditation, but we didn't do it as an exercise.
I kind of did it.
You did it, okay, good. A reminder on the final day, if not sooner, you can be contemplating action items that you would like to take up for the next month on each one of these 6, or however you like. Emphasize one of the 6, but the application part is really important. This is just common sense, but any value or quality remains forever. That's the soul. If we learn it from the deepest place of our hearts. So, discussion. Not who, but why. Why is it that role models leave a lasting impression on our lives? Assuming that that's happened for most of us. Why is it that it happens like that?
Because exemplary nature.
Oh, that was a clever answer. Well, so what? So they're exemplary in nature. Why is that leaving a lasting impact on our lives?
It's consistent and it's something that we can see and learn. At least in my case, I learned a lot of things by observing over a long period of time. Seeing the consistent nature.
Seeing the consistent, what your voice,
Consistent nature and application of how things are dealt with.
how things are deliberated,
Deliberated or dealt with.
dealt with. Okay, just trying to articulate clearly and will make it easier for a half-deaf person. Yes. Why? Is the question.
Why? I feel that a role model has to, in order for someone to be a role model in someone's life, they have to uphold some sort of standard that you have within yourself to make them a role model that would be impressionable.
Say it again a little slower. Sounded good. Plus our microphone man wants you to say it in the microphone.
That a role model would have to uphold, for someone to be a role model in our lives, they would have to uphold some sort of role model standard in our lives, and then in turn would be impressionable to us.
Okay. Let me say it back. Just the nature of a role model is they exhibit or hold or bear certain nice standards or worthy standards, exalted standards, and because they do, it inspires us to achieve that. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Good.
Just want to say one more thing, that they practice what they preach, and that's...
Okay, so that's an acharya. You're saying the same thing again. They practice what they preach, and therefore, why does that leave a lasting impact on our life? Because they practice that way they preach what they preach. Why does that leave a lasting impact?
Because it touches our hearts,
Ah,
and we see,
ah.
and it becomes an inspiration for us to follow.
Okay.
To the touching the heart point, it's the most direct experience of what we want.
Uh-huh. And because it touches the heart with the experience that you want, your heart moves. That's why.
Like
It needs a lasting impact.
speaking about humility rather than being in front of somebody who is humble, being in front of somebody who's humble always has more impact.
There you go. He just said what you meant to say. Yes?
Because these people have some special qualities which are exhibited on a consistent basis, and these qualities are somehow or the other directly related to the sense of happiness that each one of us is looking for.
So we correlate that nice, consistent, good quality with happiness, and that's something we want. That's why it makes an impact, because we want happiness. And they demonstrate that's what it looked like, and we want that.
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not judging anybody, I'm just trying to get clarity.
For me, there were two things coming. One was this component of faith, that when the standard is very high, and even though I know where I am and how high the standard is, but when I see somebody having that, it gives me faith to even aspire for that standard. Otherwise, there's a sense of hopelessness when the standard is too high, and I haven't seen anybody living up to that standard. But if I have a role model who lives that standard, it gives me hope that I don't have to be hopeless, but follow the path that that person has.
Ah, there we go. It's faith in the bhakti process, because at least for a devotee role model, the process got them to this. It gives me faith that's attainable through the process, and that carries me in a sustainable, lasting way. Second.
Second is the character, that how I'm creating these qualities, that the base of the quality is the character. And
Yes.
and what the role model is doing for me, when I see the role model, that person has a consistent character, and that's the base of the quality, and that inspires me to then dive in deeper into myself to build my character and not just stay at the performance level.
That's nice. So that's more enduring or sustainable or time-bound than getting a behavior thing together and then it fizzles. Very good.
Hope was the one thing from the
Hope.
Yeah.
Hope. We have another hope over here.
I also think of being able to hold space and make space in your heart to be receptive of being impacted.
Okay. Okay, we have an intuitive and affective, let's hope effective too, but an affective group here. You're in touch with your feelings. Some people don't even know what a feeling is, but you're really good. Thank you. I guess John Maxwell is a motivational speaker. Imagine translating this into Chinese. But they got it somehow. I asked them. Your walk talks and your talk talks, but your walk talks louder than your talk talks. I've heard it said in different ways before, but I've never heard this one. So, I don't know if that's, you wrote a book about it or something. Here's where the word acharya appears in Bhagavad Gita. Who knows the verse in Sanskrit? Yadir acharati shreshtas. Who knows the verse in Sanskrit? Tat eve tarorjana. You don't know? Behind you. No, you. Yeah. You haven't learned Bhagavad Gita slokas. Okay, it's a good one to learn. Shrestha means the best. And tat, eve tarorjana. Eve taror. The eva taror. The people in general, they follow the shreshtas, the best. It's just a rule. I mean, It's not like somebody made up the rule, that's just how it is. Those who are, you know, demoniac persons have their leaders too. They're example-setting demons. And the Vaishnavas have their example-setting great souls. It's role models. So whatever, this is now a great man, this is the exalted person. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Okay, so now facilitation time. Look at 12 minutes.
Okay, very well. So, we're going to get right into this exercise. I want to make sure that everybody has a pen and paper. And by the end of it, we will have a discussion with one of the present. So, you can, but initially we're going to start with a pen and paper. I do have papers and pens here. Again, does anybody need some? Yeah. Do you mind coming up here to get it, please? Anybody else? I didn't see any other hands. Okay, so we're all set with this. So I'd like us to begin by thinking about a person who has influenced our life in some way. And this can be anybody throughout your life, from childhood, throughout school, maybe at the workplace, or otherwise. So take a moment to think about such a person who has influenced your life in some way. There must be another. You can move to the next, the questions are up here already, but as you're thinking about this person, now we're going to try to get a little more specific, and we're going to try to write down qualities in this person that influenced you. So this person influenced you in some way.
What qualities of should we focus on this one?
That's a choice. I give you that choice. You have the choice to choose. You can have one quality or multiple qualities. I think it would help actually to, I can explain the third part as well. What you're going to have a discussion about is incidents where these qualities were brought out. So if that helps you to kind of work on the quality part of it. Usually there are incidents that illustrate the qualities in a person that influence us. now I'd like to request you to turn to the person close to you or one other person and describe the incidences which brought out these qualities in this individual. So there must have been some experience you had, some exchange you saw or were even involved in with this person, where a certain quality was illustrated, and that's what touched your heart, as we were saying earlier. Something about them touched our heart. So we're going to have about 5 to 10 minutes, a good solid amount of time. So go for it.
उसके बाद पढ़ाई करना शुरू
Yeah, besides coming out, it's not going to change that. I would be good at this. Of course, it doesn't wind up coming
And next time, she will give you another aspect of this. We are taking a positive approach. Seeing it, and
You go like this. Oh,
that's my thing.
Yeah.
And no one she started
Like this. So she's just experience, but all my making more accurate. Like,
so what she's doing is she's letting me do that where I'm satisfied that she feels another direction. But at the same time, she knows that the experience will change. So she's prepared me for directly told her so fortunate.
Laura, we need something. I didn't take anything, I just took my name. Okay, give this one to the But you have all these things, I can't keep all these things. Yeah, you can take a picture of It's really good. This is like this. Or we need some footage. Not like this much, like a lot. Lauren, do you want to help us? I'll take pictures of it just and then we'll yeah, we can keep it. Are you playing with them? I'll show how. We need at least half of it. I have an idea. Okay, we're going to follow everything. We're going to divide it into thirds, and then everyone gets their section. I'll give you one.
So it looked like everyone was having engaged and involved discussions. So I guess to wrap up a little bit. But again, take this experience with you and see it as an opportunity to meditate more on this individual, or perhaps individuals who have influenced our lives. Thank you for this.
The recording off? Oh, I just did it. No, you did.
It's, I think you just click on the symbol.
A definition is of acharya is one who teaches by example. One of the things I really like about Sanskrit is I don't know Sanskrit. And when Prabhupada would explain something, it was all no. It's like language is a symbol. There's the word. You know, in different languages, there are different words for different things. So this is a chair, and this word is a symbol of something, or it represents something. So I remember hearing Prabhupada saying, there are two words. There's more than two words. There's two words. Achar and prachar. And one morning walk, is a morning walk in Vrindavan. We were heading back for the temple after going out, and so around 1 hour later, in the distance we could hear a kirtan. The devotees were waiting to receive Prabhupada. And he suddenly stopped and looked around and said, "Where are all the devotees?" And the answer was, they're waiting for you, Prabhupada, they're leading kirtan, waiting for you. That's where the devotees are. And he didn't say, no, that's not what I meant. He said, when there's an opportunity to associate with a spiritual master, one should take that opportunity. That's what he meant, where are the devotees? And then he looked at us and said, there are two types of association. There's achar and prachar. And so there's the excuse me. It was Vani and Bapu. So when you have the opportunity for Bapu, you should go. And when you go, the most important part is Vani. And in the absence, then it's Vani. So Vani is most important, but when there is opportunity. So there's the two types of teaching, achar and prachar. And of the two, teaching by example is stronger. I mean, that's one of the answers to why role models make a lasting impression. How does a teacher exemplify spiritual life? So there's different ways, and here's some of those different ways. Going back to our first value, equal vision value, seeing spirit in all living entities. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, we've seen this verse so many times. It's an essence verse for values of Bhagavad Gita. Pandita Samadarshana. And they exemplify, acharyas exemplify, seeing the spirit or spirit soul within every life form. I recently heard a nice story, and I'll share the nice story. It's Prabhupada's story. A devotee was with Srila Prabhupada in his quarters, and next to his table, Prabhupada's little, he called it a coffee table. That's an American expression, but a small table where he put stuff. And Prabhupada was leaning over that little table. and said to the devotee, "You see the ant?" And the devotee's reply was, I know that Prabhupada is the external representative of Super Soul, and if he says there's an ant, there must be an ant. But I don't see the ant, it's just an empty table. And so I didn't want to say, yes, I see the ant and I'm a liar. I didn't want to say, no, I don't see the ant and look stupid. So, like this other devotee said, I just was mum. Didn't say anything. And then Prabhupada's mood changed. This devotee said it seemed like he wanted to move on to some important business. So he said, our business is to save this ant. So the devotee said, oh no, now there's an ant that I can't see. Some service I have to do for the ant that I don't see. And Prabhupada was still leaning over, studying this empty table, and saying, somehow we have to give him Krishna consciousness. Maybe we should give him prasadam. Maybe we should chant Hare Krishna so his Krishna consciousness will awaken. Somehow or another, if we can just rescue this one ant, then our whole Krishna consciousness movement will be successful. He looked at the devotee and went on with business. And he was taking that Prabhupada was teaching him. And again, the Acharya would teach in all circumstances. Not most of circumstances, but it was always his mood. And by that one example alone, teaching, we see the spirit soul within all living entities, regardless of their embodiments. Simple living, high thinking. So there's Narada and his seeing the spirit soul within the hunter and elevating the soul and consciousness of that hunter to become a saintly person who now, that's the little cottage that he was told to create and sit in and chant in front of his tulsi tree like Haridas Thakur and be happy. Chant and be happy. So, it's so many nice examples in our Bhagavatam. There's a whole list. Simple living, high thinking from our personalities from the Bhagavatam. And we know from the Bhagavatam there's 12 processes of bhakti, and there's great personalities that exemplify each one. And each one, even they were living as kings, some of them, but their lives were quite simple, at least internally. Exemplifying service to awaken others' eternal spiritual nature. Just cognitive. So this is on the Acharya principle, and we can see, as the devotees here have been sharing, here is a living example. And Prabhupada's dedication to awakening others' eternal spiritual nature. Some time ago somebody gave me a gift that I value very much. If you want to give a gift to somebody, here's one you can give to somebody. In Vrindavan, it may have them elsewhere, but in Vrindavan there's a little, not a recorder, but just a player device. It's made in India, it's kind of funny looking, it's got a little antenna so you can listen to the Bhagavatam class in your home. And, the FM. And so, this little device has all of Prabhupada's recorded material loaded up on it. You don't have to even load it, it's already loaded. So I've been listening and listening and listening, and listening and listening and listening and listening as It's not that I've never listened before, but it's just so easy, it's really loud, and it goes anywhere, very small. So, hearing consistently, whatever the audience, whatever part of the world, sometimes new people, sometimes Indian people, sometimes. The refrain, one refrain, is Prabhupada wanting people to be happy. And he would say really heavy things sometimes. But the purpose was to dislodge them from their suffering so they could become happy. And he was explicit about it, towards the end, after getting heavy, and then getting heavier and heaviest, and then explaining why he was doing it. Not exactly, this is why I'm doing it, but he wanted people to be happy. And sacrifice, left, right, sideways, to make people happy. And second point is, I've looked it up, and there's no, it's source unknown. There's something similar, but not the exact words that Prabhupada used again and again, is Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. Everyone should be happy. Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. When I was visiting in Beijing in July, there's not a temple, but there's kind of like a center. There's some details, but so there's one of the largest sanghas of devotees in China is in Beijing. And so I was visiting there for a bit, and the topic they asked me to speak about was one of my favorite topics, the importance of reading Prabhupada's books. I spoke for about an hour and a half, and then went on for 2 hours on the importance of reading Prabhupada's books and why. And something that I taught them, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times. I just had them repeat it. Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. Because the force driving that was Prabhupada's wish that people would be happy. So if you want to be happy, receive the happiness from the person who has the capacity to give happiness. And part of it is, removal of attachments to the temporary, because that's the root of suffering. The root of suffering is not desire. The root of suffering is having ignorant desire. And you take away ignorant desire, and what's left? You still have the desire to be happy, but then you have happiness. Because it's properly directed desire, guided by those who want to awaken others' eternal spiritual nature. And how much energy, sacrifice, and everything Prabhupada invested in his Bhaktivedanta purports. You probably know this story, but I've heard it a number of times from a number of devotees in a number of places. As busy as Prabhupada was, who can imagine how busy Prabhupada was, there would be times when he would, just for hours, have somebody just read from his books. And he didn't get fatigued. He didn't, as little as he slept, he was just hearing like we do sometimes, we get a little drowsy. He didn't. And from time to time he would say, Krishna has written these books. I was receiving dictation from Krishna. Krishna is the real author. So, he wasn't saying that, it wasn't a false humility. He was just sharing. That was his heart, sharing his heart. And his enjoyment was not hearing his own writings. His enjoyment was hearing Krishna. To make people happy. The principal exemplifying that spiritual life is practical, whoever we are. So that's whoever they are, but whoever we are too. This is 26, this is Tompkins Square Park. And, you know, underneath the oak elm tree, and look at the people surrounding Prabhupada. Some of them have human bodies, but they probably weren't living a human life. Just because of the standards that they were keeping, but Prabhupada didn't mind, or didn't. He knew how to, he had faith in the power of bhakti to transform. And he was just being an instrument of the power of bhakti to transform. And finding practical ways, according to the individuals, to bring Krishna consciousness into their life. Now comes the tough question. What about us? Oh, we're way down here and Prabhupada is way up there. Boo-hoo. How are we going to be acharyas? This is meant for elevated persons, not for me. So the good news is, we receive instructions, take that idea and trash it. We receive instructions from the Bhagavatam, how persons who, they were also less than qualified or distracted or whatever, and they regained their original Krishna consciousness. So here's some examples. Dhruva, he was in this retaliation mode, and even under the advice of Narada, give it up. He couldn't give it up. He didn't give it up until, by the mercy of Narada and the very means of bhakti that he was given by Narada, he went on the other side of that retaliation, material motivation mode, and he showed how from material motivation one can come to spiritual motivation. King Chitraketu, pictured over here, totally absorbed in attachment, and then totally, based on that attachment, totally absorbed in lamentation. Again, by the mercy of Narada and Angira, he moved. The basis was sound vibration, but sound vibration carried by a pure devotee that carried him from the imperfect, and then he eventually became a perfected being. So, Ajamila, it took, some hard lessons, but he also moved from the position of attachment to Krishna's shelter. So, there's hope for us. And that hope is taking shelter of those who are worthy of shelter. Our founder Acharya is one such person, and we don't imitate, we must not imitate, it would be ridiculous to imitate, but we try our best to follow that Acharya personality, and gradually by that adherence to the example of our founder Acharya, we can also gradually become qualified. Just some little sayings that are nice. And Acharya inspires integrity. Others said the same thing in different words. But integrity is, we have a value, but we don't live by it. And an Acharya will help us, inspire us to live by our own values. They have power, and we just give them power. They already have it. We can receive it, and it inspires integrity. Teaching by example is the essence of education. Leading by example is the essence of governance. Exemplifying one's principles is the basis of dignity, respect, and trust. Now, I'll give a hint where that comes from. It comes from the Amish people. Anybody here not know who the Amish people are? You all know. Okay, so I didn't know the Amish people are even in Indiana. Met somebody in Grand Rapids that used to live in Indiana, and he said it's Amish country. Anyway, so one of the values of the Amish people is exemplifying principles, our values. That's the basis of dignity, respect, and trust. So people, because they live that way, they're regarded that way. You know, we may not be able to live like they live, but although they live very simply, at least many people really appreciate the values that they live by, the dignity, respect, and trust that they have earned. So this came out when some very unfortunate event took place. Some criminals were driving by in a car and shot with a gun 2 of their teenage girls in their community. And the very first thing the community did, they didn't call 911 because they don't have telephones. So they went to their place of worship, and the elder of the community brought everybody together, and they started praying to God for forgiving the soul that had done this horrible thing. And the media caught wind of the murder, and then they caught wind of their response, and so they got a big write-up. And when interviewing the village elder, whatever the title of the person is, he cited this as one of the values that we live by. Like, where'd you get the strength to do this, and the wisdom to do this? It's a value that we live by, and it gives us strength, dignity, respect, and trust. So now, back to Bhagavad Gita. Notice the image again, the lower right is the key and the upper right is the lock. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna exemplifies how to inquire, how to hear, how to be open-hearted, how to be dutiful, how to face ever-changing life, how to face inevitable death, how to move from false ego to the real self. So he's a role model or an acharya for us in all of these ways. So Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, but he's speaking to us. And Arjuna is showing us modeling, role modeling, how we should hear, how we should come to the stage of becoming free from false ego and accept who we really are. And that's it. Till the exercises, and then stand by for some video. Do you need the projector moved again?
Yeah, we'll move it. Yeah. So we'll have a couple of skits, and they will be presented by Janitha and Miranda over here. And as we're watching these skits, we can think about what we've learned in this presentation about the Acharya principle. We will bring those out at the end. We'll have a debriefing. Okay, so guys, I think I'd like this wire out of the way also. Or sorry. Oh, okay.
There's, we'll use.
That's fine. You can be loud. Yeah, you can be
There's,
loud.
we'll actually use these chairs for the other ones, so we'll just put the 2 chairs there. Can you give this to me?
You want to be without the microphone, but our sound man wants to have a recording.
Oh, okay. I can, let's try. Okay.
Why don't you give her the microphone? We talked her into taking
I can
it.
hold it. I'll just hold it.
You're the actress, huh? Good.
I am the professor.
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Professor Sopaliga. I'm here to dictate my own personal dictation on Bhagavad Gita. 1 second. Sorry, I have vodka. Hope you don't mind. Just help me get in the mood a little bit. Anyone want any? You sure? All right. Oh, almost forgot. Anyone want to smoke? No one? Okay, that's fine. You guys look a little uncomfortable. Whatever, I'll put it out. All right. So today, here's the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Prabhupada wrote his commentary, whatever. So today I wanted to touch on Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 23. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Personally, we could read the purport, but I wrote my own personal purport, and I'll read that too. So, okay, let's just get real. Pretty much, look at my life. I can drink, I can smoke, I can do whatever I want, right? And here it is in the Bhagavad Gita that says, we can do whatever we want. The soul, we're not going to die, nothing's going to kill us per se. Why not just have fun with it? Do what you want to do. Nothing can stop you, we're immortal. Any questions on that? All right, you little cute guy in the front, what question do you have?
I happen to be reading the purports. I happen to be reading. I happen to read some of that purport by Srila Prabhupada, and he has a little different idea on that.
Yeah, but we're not really here for that. This is my class, so you can go ahead and retract your question if you would like. Thank you. Scene. That's it. And now we have the other professor.
Hello, everyone. Oh, you didn't have it to the same page. Was it 223?
Three.
Hello. So, I'm supposed to give a presentation on my own commentary on Bhagavad Gita because that was our assignment. But I happen to really appreciate the commentary that's written by Srila Prabhupada. And today our professor was speaking that the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. And that was, in a sense, that we should take solace in that because we're eternal beings and therefore really we can't be harmed, so therefore we can live as we desire freely and happily. And as I understand, based on reading these commentaries, that that's true if we understand who we are as we are. And if we know who we are as we are, then we as we are as truly loving and spontaneous beings, then we can be happy. But to know who we are as we are, it helps to read Bhagavad Gita as it is. And the reason we have this purport on Bhagavad Gita as it is because there's another verse that says that if we are to understand Bhagavad Gita, that we can approach a spiritual master and we can inquire from him and serve him. And in that, see, these great souls, they do know who they are as they are. And because they are living in such a space by living according to the instructions of Krishna, that they've realized this knowledge. And that all those ways that we're lacking in our capacity to live in such an exalted way, that by serving them and by inquiring from such people, and by that association, we can come to that place. And Srila Prabhupada is such a person. And so by reading his commentaries, we're actually coming in contact with him, and we're actually able to associate directly with him. And not only that, there's so many great souls that are living according to this book now that Prabhupada had many disciples. And so there's many opportunities to associate with such people. So by taking ourselves and putting ourselves in that association, then we can experience ourselves as we are. And actually experience Bhagavad Gita as it is. Thank you.
Very well.
Okay, so before you do the next one, we'll just debrief this one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So, would anyone like to volunteer? What were they preaching, and who was or wasn't practicing what they're preaching? We can begin with the first one. Our dear Miranda, and here's your vodka. So what was Miranda preaching?
Hedonism.
Well, what was she trying to preach actually in her class? We were in what class?
Religion class.
What was the class about?
She was talking about the soul, like it can't be touched by fire and water, but she was taking it completely with the other side, she was taking it at the bodily level where she's trying to, say your body can be touched by these things.
Right. So she was trying to preach the principles of Bhagavad Gita, but she wasn't exactly practicing them. And she wasn't practicing them because she misinterpreted them completely. So by drinking vodka and smoking in her class. And then did you want to say something? Oh, okay, the mic. Okay, he's just holding the mic. Did anybody else want to share any reflection on the first one? Anything that stood out to them? Yes.
It seemed that because she had her own ideas, that there wasn't a need to consider the ideas that already exist or precede her.
Thank you.
I was reminded of Srila Prabhupada mentioning to one of his disciples about Sri Radha Krishna's interpretation of Bhagavad Gita, where in one verse where Krishna says, "Surrender unto me," Radha Krishna,
Dr. Radha
Dr. Radha Krishna, he's he says, surrender not to Krishna, but something to the effect that internally I forget
the unborn,
the unborn
manifest within.
Unborn and manifest within Krishna. So the people like to interpret according to their own conveniences and not try to understand the meaning as it is.
Thank you for sharing that.
For me, one thing that I was noticing in the first skit was that, again, this Acharya principle, that the connection with the person was missing. Although she had the book, she never made the connection even with the author or where it's coming from or anything. So even though she's reading it without that connection with a person. And so in one sense, she wasn't like preaching, she was living in a very different lifestyle, and that's what she was taking out of Bhagavad Gita to support that lifestyle and saying, hey, see, this is how I practice Bhagavad Gita. And so that principle of that's what made a difference, because it was never learned through a person. Thank you.
Oh, over here, left Julie.
I thought the professor, when she came in, was very interesting to see that she had an attitude of know-it-all. So there was no curiosity or learning from the books or the scriptures. So whereas the second one came in with the, oh, I wanted to share something, but I learned something from this book, and I made a connection with that, and I'm curious to share with everybody. So
Really nice. Thank you for that comparison. We can share others.
I also thought about, too, like doing this, like what it means to be in like a position of power and having that kind of impact on other people, and how important it is to actually, like walk the talk, and lead by example, to be that kind of acharya, because people are so impressionable, and when you're up on that podium, people are looking up at you and see you as that person on that podium, and it's so easy to, have people think bad things and misdirect people.
Glad you got that realization. Any others? We can also move to share our reflections from the second skit that Jen and I illustrated. I can share something. They both wrote this script. I didn't give them a script this time, so I had no idea what they were gonna come up. But what I observed is very clearly, Janitya Prabhu was telling everyone to read this book. But while he was telling everyone, he was also telling everyone that I have read this book. It was a very clear illustration of teaching by example. Please read this book, but actually, through the fact that he has read the book, he was telling everyone, please read the book. So I found that a very nice illustration of that. Any other reflections from his act? Yes.
One thing that I noticed was when he was sharing his realization, it wasn't like very far out realizations that he was sharing. He was very much sharing from a very personal place. So which to me it feels like even if he was the professor or she was the professor, he wasn't saying that I know everything about Bhagavad Gita or anything, but he was very genuinely sharing from his place, and that has an impact. So in that sense, he was, even in that place, exemplifying as an acharya. It doesn't have to be the perfect acharya, but this is how I got the book, and this is how I'm reading or getting benefited. So that's something I was noticing.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Second professor is very smart and intelligent. The first professor is opposite. She doesn't know how to use the knowledge.
True statement. Thank you. Yes,
Along the lines as Mataji just shared, and also looking back at the question that Maharaj had, we are not, Srila Prabhupada is way up there, we are not perfect individuals. But from what he demonstrated, when someone is trying to follow the teachings of Srila Prabhupada as they are with utmost sincerity, naturally Srila Prabhupada and Krishna from within the heart give that potency to inspire other people, even though we may not be perfect.
Thank you for highlighting that. Miranda, here you go.
I was thinking about comparing the both and the nature of how Joy Nitai was very had an openness, and his tone was very calming and soothing, and then mine was very kind of harsh, and he was really appropriate, and mine was very inappropriate to the utmost. And also thinking about the end, I'm touching again on that position of power, how quickly inappropriateness can draw that out of people. Like me saying cute guy in the front, that's awful. We should never do that. And how being in a position of power and doing that to somebody and how catastrophic that could be.
Thanks for sharing that.
I was just thinking in terms of how in each case, the modes of nature. So in the first case, I just felt her understanding of the teaching was based on how the modes of nature acted upon her. And based on that, she interpreted the teachings according to her convenience. And so I was just thinking it's so important to take the proper guidance in the disciplic succession, so that we are not just influenced by our own conditioning, but come to the proper understanding. Because at a subtle level, even though this was extreme, at a subtle level, we interpret the teachings somewhat based on our conditioning. That's what I feel.
Really important point. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to appreciate your point, Prabhu, because I was thinking about the famous verse, Evam Parampara Praptam, that saintly kings understand it in this way, which also implies that there are other ways to understand it. That you can understand it through parampara, or you can understand it through other means, mainly whichever conditioning you've acquired from the modes, which is not always recognized in the implication of that verse, that there are many ways to interpret the Bhagavad Gita, but the saintly kings understood it through parampara.
Yes.
As Prabhuji was sharing, I was reminded of two important things. One is, we say that one should have a living guru, and basically from the first example we can learn that even though someone is really interested in Prabhupada's books, but they might not, they're not receptive to accept a living guru, there's a danger that they can have wrong interpretations of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And the second point is the importance of devotee association. So when we have devotee association, we have opportunity to check with them about our understandings of what we read from Srila Prabhupada's books, if they are correct or not, our understanding is correct or not.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it takes it to a different level. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess going to turn me on. Okay. Something that you shared, as well as something that Shubhra shared, made me think the following. Because the imperfect being acharya, that is, I'm not there, but I encourage you to, go there, and here's what I've understood, and not in pretense, but so, such a person, that's the acharya principle in the not yet mature stage, but by following that not yet mature stage properly, one can come to the mature stage. One can, although it's far away, one can move towards that stage. And that's part of the acharya principle.
Thank you. So we have one more skit, so I'd like to invite you guys up to.
We have our enthusiastic actor team. Did you get your volunteers for the other day? That you didn't have? That was pretty subtle. Go ahead.
Is there a remote? Maraj, may we borrow your remote as a prop?
This one?
Nope.
The clicker.
This thing? Okay.
I'm a mother and he's my teenage son.
Okay.
What are you doing? Son, I'm talking to you. What are you doing?
Stuff.
Stuff. You're playing your games again. How long have you been playing games today?
Maybe as long as you've been watching TV.
Is that going to talk to your mother?
No, mother, it's not.
Why don't you do something constructive with your life, like read a book or something?
I hate you.
Whatever.
This is a new skit. I hear. Very creative.
Hey son, what are you up to?
Stuff?
Stuff. I'm doing stuff. Want to do stuff with me?
Like what?
Well, I'm reading a Christian book and it's getting really good. Do you want to read with me for a little bit?
Sure.
Alright, come on. What chapter do you want to read?
16.
Alright.
Good.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm using the mic.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. I really want to thank Miranda and Janie Prabhu for being such enthusiastic performers. They really signed up to help me out. And as Marge mentioned, this was their own creation. It wasn't pre-written. So once again, let's try to bring out how they exemplified the Acharya principle in different ways. Any volunteers?
Or didn't exemplify.
Right. Did or did not. Yeah, did not is the easier one, isn't it? Sometimes. Are you raising your hand for 1 second? Oh. So what did we observe?
When your mother asked how long you're going to do your stuff, the video game, the son gave a response, as long as you're watching TV. And then she changed another channel.
Right. Right, there you go. He does want to share something.
Kids learn things from parents. So whatever parents do, the kids try to do the same. So they do good, they learn good things.
And in these two situations, can you tell me what was the bad that was learned, or was
So mother
and what
was,
was the good also?
so mother was watching
Yeah.
TV continuously, and her son was playing games and in the mobile.
Mhm.
But the moment she started reading books, he also showed some interest in it. So that's good.
Thank you, Prabhu. Amit Prabhu would like to share something.
So, in both cases, like kid was doing like same thing, but depending on Acharya, that's his mother, he could then become like he was totally closed in first one, and whereas in second one he like kind of opened, to the good things. So that's what I feel like, acharyas, they open us, like we are always in our own thing, but whenever we meet acharyas, they kind of open us to higher things, because of their examples, whatever they do.
Nice.
Thank you, Shashank.
In the first case, the exchange was more of one-liners, and in the second case, acharyas, one of the principles that acharyas exhibit is knowing the needs or caring for the persons that they are guiding. So in the second case, the exchange was more of trying to understand by asking questions rather than one-liners, which were there in the first case. So it was more of caring and trying to understand the other person, and trying to engage according to their interests.
Right, and that just reminded me that in the first case, when he said, "I'm doing stuff," she was, how did you respond? You basically put him down, you belittled him for doing stuff and playing on his phone. But in the second case, when he replied, "I'm doing stuff," she just said, "Okay, you're doing stuff." She didn't throw any negative comment towards him in that case. So that definitely shows some care. Yeah, thank you for bringing that out. Yes, we have a couple here.
So one of the things that I was noticing in this was this exemplification of that who we are impact others more than what we say. And in the first case also, the mother had that desire to inspire the child to read, but she herself wasn't inspired to read. And in the second one, it was her inspiration, and she was getting something out of that book. Although the boy initially was totally oblivious of what that book is, seeing the inspiration of the mother inspired him to come and join in that activity. So when it's who she is and was impacting the choices that he was making.
That's a really nice point. Yeah, she didn't just pretend to like the book. There was actually some deep inspiration coming from it. That's why. Yeah. Thank you.
For me, in the first case, she had the expectation, but she wanted him to do something, but which she herself is not doing it. So maybe that expectation is too much for the kid. Maybe I'm just thinking. In the second case, she was just trying whatever she wants. She's trying to do something, and she was involving him in that. It's not that she's perfect to her. She's trying, learning, and engaging him. So that made maybe some dynamic shift.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah, it's that effort. Yeah, even though she's not perfect. Thank you.
So in the first kid, I thought it was very interesting the way the mother was belittling, and also she was almost kind of telling him what to do. But in the second one, it was like, what would you like to read? What chapter? So.
Nice point, yeah. Really nice point. Yeah, she specifically asked which chapter do you want to read, and he threw out a number.
So it was for more caring platform.
Thank you. You have something to do?
In the first one, the mother really, when watching how the mother and the son reacted with one another, it really didn't exemplify any sort of positive relationship at all. So for me personally, like seeing that and feeling that also reminds me of like the mother is the teacher. The mother is your first guru. That's one of the first things I learned about Krishna consciousness. And so that's Acharya, and the importance of mothers having to lead by example. And by doing that, you need to create a platform with the person you're teaching for them to even be able to take it in.
I've got a comment. How long did it take you to write that script?
We just winged it.
We really winged it.
We just made that.
It was, the elements are like, you touched on so many things. Maybe you should write more scripts.
We were going to email you about that.
But, I'm here today and gone on Thursday, so, and I, you know, it's gonna be a while before I come back again, but you can write some more scripts and perform some more skits and educate some more through that medium. There's some people that are gifted at so many things, and you know, if it's just winged it, my gosh, what to speak if you honed that experience. You know, this is, you know, recognizing gifts that Krishna has given you, kind of a message. But I'll just share something. There is a devotee in the Chicago temple. She started off just doing soliloquies, Amara, and spellbinding. Now, so you know, so whenever there's a festival, months ahead of time, she's asked, "Can you do a skit or do a drama or do a something?" And she does something. And so the latest was Janmashtami, and there were like 20 kids that had never been to a temple before. They just, you know, they're just out there in suburban land, and they came to the temple and did the whole thing themselves. And it was, you know, and the main person got a broken hand, so they had to get the main person with, you know, Krishna dancing on the hoods of the Kaliya serpent, had to get somebody else to be Krishna last minute. But, you know, it was, anyway, take your gift and work with it. Don't wait for me. And, you know, it doesn't have to be spectacular. Just like this. Then you take some time and review it, and because there's so many elements. And I wanted to say one other thing. Just on the, two of the comments were showing care. My thought was it's showing acceptance. I mean, that's the term that we've been using. And you know, parenting doesn't always work like, would you like to read Krishna book? Instead of doing your games, and they say, yeah, you know, we can read the chapter I want to read, and they, you know, it doesn't always work like that. So, but a big part of movement, aside from as you put, the platform of setting an example, another part of setting an example is acceptance, and that's maybe more difficult to do than reading Krishna book, inviting your teenager to read Krishna book with you. So acceptance, because if the subordinate doesn't feel accepted, and then they just do, what is that? What following is that? Anyway, it's not very long-term, sustainable kind of following. It's just a comment on the importance of acceptance by an example-setting person. How are we doing?
I think that if there are no more comments, that would be, we can wrap that up. Thank you again, Miranda and Jane.
Can we set up the projector again?
Yes.
So there's one more slide and 2 videos, and at least my part is completed. And while he's juggling things around, the final video some of you have seen before, and I'll tell you how I got introduced to this video. Abhiram Prabhu told me about Shel Silverstein, and that when he was raising his 2 children, on a regular basis he would sit with them in his lap and he'd read The Giving Tree and this missing piece in the Big O, and they would talk about it. So I'm gonna ask you to talk about it after you see it. Like what's the lessons that we learned? It's not like a right or wrong kind of a, quiz question. So here's a concluding slide about Gita values plus mantra meditation equals spiritual awakening. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're all awake. Or awakening at least. Okay, so now here's a little, it's short. Again, I think there's a Christian video somewhere from Southeast Asia, I don't know where. It's got subtitles in English.
นี่คือเรื่องราวระหว่างฉันกับลูกและสับปะรดฉันไม่ได้เรียนหนังสือไม่รู้ว่าต้องพูดต้องสอนแบบไหนฉันรู้แค่ว่าต้องทำให้ดูให้เขาเห็นเป็นตัวอย่าง
เป็นไงล่ะอร่อยกว่าไอติมอีกใช่ไหมจ้าแม่น่าทำขายนะแม่เนาะงั้นลองไปดูที่ตลาดว่าเขาขายกันยังไงมีไหมจ๊ะกล่องละ5 3 กล่อง 10จ้าพี่จอมครับพี่อร่อยครับพี่จอมครับจ้ามีกล่องละ5ราคา3 กล่อง 10จ้า
พอเห็นเขาได้สังเกตได้ลองทำเองวันนี้ฉันสบายใจแล้วที่เห็นเขาทำได้แบบนี้และมั่นใจว่าวันข้างหน้าถ้าไม่มีฉันเขาจะยืนได้ด้วยตัวเขาเองอัชราภูมิสวัสดิ์ได้รับทุนจากโครงการสารรักจนจบปริญญาตรีปี 2556 แรงบันดาลใจจากครอบครัวสร้างการเรียนรู้ที่ไม่รู้จบสารรักจาก AIS
I would ask for feedback. So now this is I hope it works. This is the missing piece in Big O, at least it should be.
The Missing Piece Meets the Big O by Shel Silverstein. Piece sat alone, waiting for someone to come along and take it somewhere. Some fit, but could not roll. Others could roll. Did not fit. One didn't know a thing about fitting. And another didn't know a thing about anything. One was too delicate. One put it on a pedestal and left it there. Some had too many pieces missing. It learned to hide from the hungry ones. Others rolled right by without noticing. It tried to make itself more attractive. It didn't help. It tried being flashy. But that just frightened away the shy ones. At last, one came along that fit just right. But all of a sudden, the missing piece began to grow. And grow. I didn't know you were going to grow. I didn't know it either, said the missing piece. I'm looking for my missing piece, one that won't increase. And then one day, one came along who looked different. What do you want of me? Asked the missing piece. Nothing. What do you need from me? Nothing. Who are you? I am the Big O, said the Big O. I think you are the one I have been waiting for. Maybe I am your missing piece. But I am not missing a piece. There is no place you would fit. That is too bad. I was hoping that perhaps I could roll with you. You cannot roll with me, but perhaps you can roll by yourself. By myself? A missing piece cannot roll by itself. Have you ever tried? But I have sharp corners. I am not shaped for rolling. Corners wear off and shapes change. Anyhow, I must say goodbye. Perhaps we will meet again. And away it rolled. The missing piece was alone again. For a long time, it just sat there. Then, slowly, it lifted itself up on one end and flopped over. Then lift, pull, flop. It began to move forward, and soon its edges began to wear off. Lift, pull, flop, lift, pull, flop. And its shape began to change, and then it was bumping instead of flopping. And then it was bouncing instead of bumping. And then it was rolling instead of bouncing. And it didn't know where, and it didn't care. It was rolling.
Pretty short story. So, I should have been more clear about the question at the end, but the question, without right and wrong answers, what are some lessons from this little children's story about the missing piece, the Big O?
It seems that this little piece kept trying to fit into places and kept trying to change itself. And in our personal lives, that's kind of most of our battles in the material world, is we keep trying to fit and be these things that we're not. And finally, it gave in to just being, and it was empowered by something else, a full, complete energy, and it was able to transform itself slowly through practice and through religion and God.
Great. Yeah.
One lesson I learned is
Our sound person wants to have it recorded.
one lesson I learned was like you don't change unless you put effort into it. Like the piece stayed the same and it had like rough edges until it actually started to roll and like kind of keep trying and rolling again and again, and then it finally changed into a ball.
Okay, very good.
The nature of self is we're always seeking context for that identity from someone else, and all of the someone else's came and only created more anxiety until the whole someone else came, and then there was that simultaneous oneness and difference that the missing piece could see something and someone complete, and in that recognition see how they could also become complete, individual, and yet through that relationship with the complete self.
It's like, keep reaching because there's abundant lessons. The treasure box is full of jewels.
One of the things that just amplified, one of the things I learned from a therapist who said that anytime clients would come to you,
anytime what?
Anytime a client would come to you, a client would come to a therapist.
Okay.
His inner sentence would be, can I be what I am and get what I want? And the answer is no. And until the client realizes, I have to transform to get what I want. That's the same principle where in the earlier this piece was like, I would continue to be what I am, but I still need this, need this, need this. Until it comes to this realization that I got to transform to get what I want.
On that note, just before the next round here, can anybody connect that little video with what we've discussed so far as Gita values? Specific, I'll give a hint, specific to empathic communication or nonviolent communication. Hint, needs. You know.
I can see something.
I know that you know.
It just takes me, I'm kind of slow at processing things, sorry, Ryan. But, well, I appreciated the communication that they had with the whole person at the end who recognized that, you know, he said, I'm complete in myself, and, you know, you can, maybe you don't need anyone else. I think that was somewhat of the exchange. So that reminded me of the equal vision principle. And I think the other one, I don't know if the Acharya principle was already shared, but he was, you know, at the end, the final, you know, he looked, there were so many so-called Acharyas who came, or like, the person was basically looking for an Acharya.
Yes.
And, or the missing piece was looking for an Acharya. And there were so many so-called Acharyas. But eventually when the final one came, who said that, you know, he was complete in his whole, he doesn't have a missing piece. And he exemplified it himself, and then he taught the other one the same principle. He said, maybe maybe you're fine just by yourself. You don't need to be a missing piece. And as I'm speaking to you, I'm also realizing that the missing piece was labeling himself as a missing piece. He wasn't actually, he didn't have to be a missing piece. And I don't know if there's a preamble to that.
From the presentation, I'm going to comment on what you just said, and it's similar to what Mara said. The bird in the cage, where I need my needs met, something outside of myself, and I'm a prisoner of that conception. I created the prison, and I'm the prisoner. And I'm frustrated because my needs aren't being met by others, as if my needs can be met by others. And that's the solution to happiness. Then I feel complete. But when he realizes needs is not the way to meet your needs is through others. A strategy was given to him. Now, this is kind of like New Agey impersonal. Krishna isn't in the picture. It's it's the self-made man, that image. But so there's something missing in the story, but that's okay. As devotees, we can understand what's missing in the story. When you start rolling, and I don't know where, and I don't care. Row, row, row your boat. But one last thing, just for me, the big O didn't have to. He didn't have to do anything. He gave a direction, but like we heard earlier, the missing piece had some work to do. So an acharya isn't the function of an acharya. The function of our founder acharya is not to fix us, even though we're broken. His business is not to fix us. And that function, the big O acharya function, resulted in a person feeling complete, when there is in fact intrinsic completeness. Just, Krishna is out of the picture for that little guy.
Can I say something on that point?
Yeah, sure.
Which I've been appreciating in the whole learning so far is that sometimes we talk about this denial of responsibility, not taking responsible for our own emotions. But I often forget to look from the perspective of the acharya person, that that person also doesn't take responsibility of the subordinates or whatever it's called.
Yes.
So when the big O happily rolled away fulfilled, he didn't come back being worried or concerned that, is my advice working on this, or like he didn't take the responsibility of the missing piece.
Well, a comment on that comment. To go back and ask how's it going doesn't mean I take responsibility. It's just encouragement and support and being a nourishing, force in that person's, the missing piece's life. How's it going? It's an important acharya principle also, showing care or empowerment, affection, natural.
For me, this component about hope again, that with the cage example and also with this example, that when we keep trying the wrong ways, not only it doesn't work, it also reinforces that sense of hopelessness, that, oh, I tried and it didn't work. Perhaps there is no way that it works, that I am a missing piece and I will forever remain a missing piece. And that hope that is missing because we haven't experienced someone who is whole. So when we experience a person who is whole, it brings that hope that even though I'm not whole, I don't have to buy into that hopelessness that I can never be whole.
Write it down. Vulnerability TED Talk. What you just said is Brene Brown's message. Yeah.
Just one appreciation I had is that when the missing piece met the whole piece, the big O, he was initially shocked. He went into like some time of introspection because it was, in that world, it was a rarity to meet such a soul or such an O. So I thought that was sweet.
And his first question is, what do you need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need anything. What do you want from me? I don't want anything. Because there's hope. That doesn't mean I don't care about you, it's just I don't have a need and I don't want something from you. There's no entrepreneurial thing going on between us. Yeah.
And he acknowledged the missing pieces' desire to roll. Like, because I was thinking the conclusion would be, you don't have to roll, you are as you are kind of thing. But he acknowledged his desire and he said, well, you could roll. And he just allowed him that possibility that you could do that. He didn't say like, you should do this or this is exactly. Yeah.
It's just a little cute video. Look at that. Children's story.
Yeah, children's story inspired the more. I was just thinking when the missing piece met the big O, there was a lot of, it was almost like he felt stuck at a place where he wanted to be something but was not able to. But just looking at the big O, and the big O was walking, not just talking, but walking the walk. So, and he didn't have to say anything, he just asked about the needs and rolled on. And there was a lot of empathy and validation too, that you can do it. So it kind of gave the missing piece the momentum to roll.
Power. The projector power. You just hit the button power button. And sometimes that encouragement, empowerment thing, going back to something that you said, it requires repeated encouragement and empowerment. Repeated encouragement and empowerment, like you know, because you mean it. You're a whole being. How's it going? You know, you can do it. What resources would you like? But, you know, how can you get the resource? Not let me just pile on resources, and so you become dependent on, I'm going to give you some resources.
Yeah, that was very interesting. He didn't take him along and encourage the codependent behavior.
Yeah.
He just taught him how, by walking the walk.
Okay, now it's 20 minutes to the hour. How are we doing? Let's take a few more hands and then we're going to... Okay.
I had the good fortune of watching this video in Gita many years back. And I remember sitting and seeing this video, and I think we had groups, and Jagadananda Prabhu was part of the group, and he was asking me if I could relate this to any verse in the scripture, and then he eventually gave the answer. He said, Om Purna Madam Purnamidam from Ishopanishad.
Yeah,
and
similar to what David Madhava said.
So I was just thinking from that point of view, like the whole, anything that's emanating from the whole is complete in itself. It's like the whole remains the whole, irrespective of what's emanating. And the verse here was saying, everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are not set aside as his quota. And one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. My question was, how do I relate this purport to that video?
You're not volunteering an answer, you're wanting an answer.
Yeah, because I just went through and read the purport again. The first part is clear. It says,
well, you're reading mantra 1 after invocation. So now your question is, how does mantra 1 relate to this video?
Specifically the part where it says, one should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are
well, you're going beyond the scope of this little video.
Okay.
Now, how did he live his life? What stuff did he take on board is his quota. It's not part of the video. He was an existentialist. I don't know. I don't care where I'm going. I'm just going. Yes.
Just one comment. What I got from that was.
Can you come forward and take the microphone so we don't displease our sound?
One thing I got from the thing was the missing piece. The video said that the missing piece after the Bigo gave the instruction or whatever, it sat on that for some time.
Yeah.
Didn't feel the urge or the.
Well, we don't know what he was feeling.
Based on the video, at least it sat on it for some time, thinking it over, and so I was relating it to instructions from that we receive. We really think through, not just do something out of just doing it, or actually taking the instructions into our hearts. That's how I related. That's how I got.
Be careful. I just comment on your comment. Be careful not to read into what other people are up to internally. Maybe he went blank. And some time passed, and then a little light went on, and you started thinking something. Let me try. Nothing lost. So be careful. Now that's how you process things, and that's fine. But how others process is not necessarily how we process. We allow for diversity, and because that's the way it is. Be careful.
I was reminded of a few videos of Srila Prabhupada that I looked into recently, in which many of the devotees shared that when Srila Prabhupada asked them to do a certain thing, they first did not believe that they had this ability in them to do it, but somehow or the other they followed Srila Prabhupada's instruction and they were able to do those, whatever the activities or follow the instructions very successfully. I was particularly thinking about Jadarani Mataji, who is a painter. She mentions that she had never had experience in painting before, but when Srila Prabhupada asked her to paint Krishna's pictures, she did it and she became very successful. So I was also relating this to when I was driving from Detroit yesterday after the evening program. I saw a billboard in which there was a quote from Bible which said delay is not necessarily a sign of denial. Keep continuing your efforts. And in this particular video, the change is something which is very difficult for one to change. But as the missing piece tried to roll, it was taking some time for itself. But when one continues to persist or continues to practice, eventually, how much ever time it may take, but at one point one could be successful.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. From Bhagavad Gita perspective, we don't know. Keep trying, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. We don't know what the result is going to be, other than we're going to keep trying. That's all we know. And that's just, Krishna recognizes our effort, that much we know. But the result, we don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe long time, maybe short time, maybe not at all. We don't know. In terms of the material product, we don't know. That's not, I don't care. It's everything's in Krishna's hands. That's true. Whether it happens or doesn't happen, everything is in Krishna's hands. Again, it's just, editing of be careful. That Krishna will recognize the effort, that's for sure. What he does with that recognition of our effort, we don't know. But whatever it is, it's of the best, it's in our best interest, that much. So, we're going to end. And whatever's next on our schedule. Any announcement for tomorrow?
So, I think everyone knows here, evening is Troy. That was Simha Prabhu's home. The time is 7:30. 7:30 is the published time. We start at 7:30. And then tomorrow morning we meet here. Tomorrow morning is early class because tomorrow is a working day. 7 a.m.
Yes,
7 a.m.
that's what it says.
Tomorrow morning 7 a.m. class.
This evening, what was given to me as a topic, our host in Troy changed the topic, which is fine. I'm fine. It's fine. No problem. So it's going to be those that were in Grand Rapids and got part 1 and part 3. This is part 4 of the art of meditation, overcoming negative emotion. It's more about overcoming negative emotion than it is the art of meditation. And then we're going to do some 30 minutes worth of sitting in groups. The negative, we selected 3 of the favorite negative emotions today. Anxiety, anger, and depression. And then have people, here's the 2 questions. You can select which group you want to be in. At least the experience that I've had so far is kind of evenly spread. Depression seems to be like, there are more people that want to talk about that. But whatever happens tonight, we'll see. And then, thinking of some experience that you've had or somebody that's dear to you and important to you has had in one of those 3 areas. So you can think about how to help that person because you care about the person. Which of the overcoming of negative emotion principles might be most appropriate for you, for your or the other, your relationship with this other person, and why? That's like in a group. And then going forward in time, what do you think you might try to do to help you or another person that's close to you overcome a negative emotion going forward in time? I'm saying that because it might be encouraging for some of you to attend that maybe didn't do part 1 and 2, but the beginning part is a summary of part 1 and 3. Part 2 was japa retreat, basically. how to chant japa, and then how to take that experience of chanting japa into the overcoming of negative emotion. That's tonight, a little different than what it said on the sheet. And please be on time tomorrow, because we're going to start on time tomorrow. Whether you're here or not, it'll be an empty hall and we'll start on time. Thank you very much. Thanks.
So,